I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investmentpitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Andrew Henderson, the Nomad capitalist. Andrew, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's start by understanding a bit on your background as a nomad capitalist and what your vision of being a nomad capitalist is.
Yeah, so Nomad Capitalist is guided by what I call the 5 magic words: go where you're treated best. My father told me this when I was a preteen. It changed my life because he had the foresight to tell me, you don't have to stay where you're from. You don't have to stay here for the social obligations like your family. You should go where you're treated best. If you're in business, probably by the year 2020, that won't be the United States or North America. And so my vision for Nomad Capitalist is successful people have options. It's a competitive marketplace for so many things these days. You can get the best deal on everything. I mean, the margins on things like televisions are so low, restaurants, there's a million of them. You have so many choices, but yet we don't consider the country that we live in, the country we pay taxes to, the country where the banks are keeping our money, the country, the laws that we're subject to if we're a crypto investor. Our citizenship, all these things for most people are dictated by one country. They can literally shut you down in so many ways tomorrow. And I believe in having options: second passports, second residences, investments around the world, and just diversification.
That's great. And you do talk a lot about emerging markets and frontier markets. Can you talk a little bit about why you see this as a good potential for investment and maybe give some specific examples?
Well, a couple reasons. I mean, number one, they're often not correlated, frontier markets. And so you can see markets like Cambodia that have grown tremendously. You haven't seen any dips in 25 plus years. So you've had Asian financial crisis, Y2K, global financial crisis, and just continued chugging along. I think there's a lot of opportunity in these markets if you're knowing what to doing and know what to do. Obviously, they can be much more opaque than a developed market, but if you get in there and understand what it is that you're looking for, you can get much higher yields. I see people in Australia, Sydney, places like that, Los Angeles, making 2-3% yields. They have high taxes, they have lots of regulations, very pro land, very pro tenant, and just lots of problems. Oh, and by the way, the markets go down 20% every once in a while. And so I think that you can avoid all those issues by being in emerging markets that are much more pro-business, that want people to come there. The Georgias, the Malaysias, places, I think Central Asia could be opening up. Cambodia has been a good one, and probably a few others as well.
Really interesting. And for example, with Cambodia or Georgia, do you need to be a citizen to be able to invest in those areas?
So what I love about Georgia and markets like that, I think Armenia next door is perhaps starting to follow some of their playbook, is it's very open. You can buy a property, it costs $15. You can transfer it to anyone in a matter of about 3 days, and it doesn't matter if you're a citizen or resident, you can buy it even without being there. In Cambodia, as with most Asian countries and with some African countries as well, which is why I often don't talk about Africa, but you are restricted. So you can buy condos, you can buy in some cases what are called shop house apartments, but you can't in most places in Asia outside of Malaysia, where I am, buy land, by villas, things like that. So you are more restricted in some of these places, but in the Eastern European and Latin American countries, generally speaking, it's very wide open.
Interesting. And you also have the potential to, for tax reasons and for personal benefit, to invest, and through the investment you can gain citizenships. You've studied a little bit into that, right?
Well, this is a lot of what we do at Nomad Capitalist, right? And there's different ways to get a second citizenship. I believe it's a great diversification tool. Make sure that no one country owns you. You can do that with 2 citizenships. You can go out and make a donation. I've done that route a couple times to different islands, and they'll give you a citizenship in months. What you can also do is you can be naturalized, sometimes more quickly than everyone else, by investing in things that they want you to invest in. Oftentimes that's real estate. Sometimes it's starting a business. There are a couple countries where they've prioritized, crypto. Maybe not so much for residence and citizenship, but yeah, if you buy a property, you could get, like in the case of Turkey, $250,000 in property. You get citizenship in 6 months. Other countries, innumerable to mention, you can get residence and then 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, go back and get your citizenship. So it's kind of like what I call a free second passport. If you can make a good investment that's profitable, you pay a couple legal fees out of the rent, and then the passport comes with it.
And you mentioned crypto there. There are a lot of countries that are starting to look for, favorable crypto tax laws that are being, enacted. Do you see, and crypto is a very early market and it's very emerging right now. Do you see that as a proper diversification and investment tool as well?
Yeah, we have a lot of folks who do cryptocurrency. I mean, for me, I think diversification, both geographically and different asset classes, is important. I'm not putting 100% of my money into crypto. We had a guy recently has about $20 million. 25% of it's in crypto, and it's gone from basically nothing, right? So he's been a good trader in equities. He's done a couple good real estate deals, and he's done very well in cryptocurrency. So I look at it similar to gold or silver. I think that the biggest challenge you can have in any market is when you are so confident that everyone is going to come along and agree with you. And I've seen that my entire life since I was 12 years old, in libertarian politics. Most people don't want to be libertarians. Most people want to be led. They want to be told what to do. And so I think, having a balanced portfolio to make sure that no one thing is ever overweight, I think is very important. But I think crypto is really a very powerful thing, and it's a good thing to have in your portfolio.
And do you see using cryptocurrencies actually for payments? Bitcoin can be considered a store of value to some, but for others, they see it as a way to transact globally. And being a nomad and moving across borders, having a currency that is global rather than switching between foreign exchange seems favorable. Do you experience that as a nomad?
Well, I mean, I think that, I think sometimes we're so focused on, how do I avoid 50 basis points in fees or a $5 ATM charge, that we want to go and deal with something that has, great volatility at times, right? People are in different cryptocurrencies, including altcoins. I mean, some of these things, they're up, down 10% in one day. Even in, this recent chaos, I don't think I've seen very many currencies that were down, 10%, 20% in a day. And so, for me, I think my perspective would be, yes, if you want to use it for payments, if that's what you're doing, then that's fine. But if the goal is, how do I make my life as a nomad easier? You have a good international bank, you hold different currencies, you hedge in that way. The reality is most people are used to dealing in fiat currency, and we can go around and we can call everybody cheap. And listen, I have great sympathy for the cause. I also realize we live in a world where most people don't really know what's going on. And if you're going to be living this lifestyle, they don't know much about crypto in Montenegro, by and large. And so I don't know. I think I would be holding the crypto, and I would be, just using that as a long-term position and not spending it, and let the money coming in be spent.
Yeah, well, I guess because we are so early, it's hard to tell in terms of mainstream adoption. Can you go to each country that you're going to, and will you? You may have to incur those extra fees if they don't accept Bitcoin, but maybe 10 years down the road, then it will be more widespread. Do you foresee that coming quicker than sooner?
More widespread. It's always hard. Listen, people ask me, is everyone going to be a nomad one day? No, they don't want to be. And you can look at that with people who are on my team, for example. They like where they're from. They like their city. They like being around their family. They like their boyfriend, right? They don't want to go anywhere. Maybe they want to travel a couple weeks a year, right? I don't necessarily imagine, I don't have the chutzpah to say that everyone is going to want to live my life. My life is for, I think, a limited number of people who are adventurous on the digital nomad side, on the nomad capitalist side, wealthy people, 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors. It's the adventure as well. It's better opportunities, better lifestyle, less nonsense in your life, and of course, lower taxes. I think the same thing applies to crypto. Yes, more widespread. I think certain places you'll see it be more widespread, but to say that every country on earth is going to adopt it, listen, if it's very important to you that you can totally transact in crypto, then I think I would have those kind of countries on my agenda. But you're going to be crossing a number of countries off your list. And so the countries that are, I think, invariably more crypto friendly right now may not be the places where you want to go and spend your time.
Yeah, I guess because a lot of these people in these countries that have hyperinflation with their currencies are turning to crypto.
Sure.
For Venezuela, the hyperinflation is crazy, and although everyone's using crypto, it may not be the nicest place to go and visit or potentially invest in.
Or Belarus or something. I mean, I kind of like Belarus, but are most people going to want to live there? People talk about, Georgia. I'm a fan of Georgia, and they've been very good. But, is it a place where you want to go and live full time? It's a bit of a culture shock for that. And, I hate to say it, but what they're also doing to combat hyperinflation in a lot of places? U.S. dollars, right? So I do hear you, and I'm on the side of the cause, but I also like to make sure we're being pragmatic and we're not allowing the movement to dictate the hype.
I'm curious on your take about central bank digital currencies. It seems like China and America may be rushing to move their currencies digitally or on the blockchain as well, as opposed to using a decentralized currency that isn't controlled by a central government. Do you foresee that as practical for nomads to be using central bank digital currencies when they do come?
Doesn't that defeat the point, right? Again, here is my concern, right? And I know there's people in the crypto community who, far too pragmatic for them. Look what happened during the recent months. The U.S. government came out and said, put your money in an FDIC insured bank. It's safe. And you and I can look at that and say, or I'll speak for myself. You can say, that's a little ridiculous. Okay, I mean, this FDIC fund has like half a penny for every dollar in deposits, and like you're going to trust the U.S. government with your money. Look at all the other governments that have bailed in banks. But most people believe it, and so my fear is whenever you have the quote unquote more reasonable alternative put out by governments, people may start to say, oh, well, that that Bitcoin thing I heard about, maybe this government version is better. I don't know, but I do feel like a lot of people are scared about something that's new. Adoption often takes a long time. You can say the internet, obviously, adoption didn't take that long in the course of history. But I do fear that people like the government alternative.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see.
It doesn't make it good.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think that the Facebook Libra had a catalyst in interest of these kinds of currencies for people that weren't already involved in the industry. So, one other thing that you also focus on is luxury nomads. Some people think of nomads as people that have no possessions and they're traveling around almost like a backpacker. But you talk about talking with a lot of entrepreneurs that have huge salaries and, they're nomads, but they actually live a very luxurious life. Can you talk a little bit about, what cities are best for luxury nomads, or a little bit about, around that?
Sure. I mean, we've had everyone from, $500,000 a year to billions of dollars in net worth, billion-dollar company founders. Dubai is one that I think is popular because you have the blend of low tax, you have excellent infrastructure, shopping, get anything you want, great service. Singapore is a good one. But I also think that, we're entering an era where, the country club era has come to an end, where there's like, you're kind of ring fencing yourself as a wealthy person. I mean, Kuala Lumpur, for me, could I afford to live in Singapore? Yes. But to me, it's a better value. People a little more kind here. I'm not saying they're bad in Singapore, but they're just super nice here. It's just a bit more fun, right? It's a bit more of a lively place to be. I think, places like Belgrade in Europe are very interesting because one of the things that I'm trying to do, and I think a lot of people are trying to do, is they're trying to get away from some of the noise in the Western world about how the rich are evil and kind of everyone's priorities have just shifted. And so for me, moving to Vienna or Auckland, which always tops these lists, notice how there's never a single city you haven't heard of on these lists put up by U.S. media. Like there's never a single one. You'll never see Kuala Lumpur, and yet you have probably some of the best malls in the world here. When guys are telling me, hey, my wife is kind of concerned, I was like, tell her to look at Pavilion Mall in Kuala Lumpur. And I totally go and look, I can promise you it's better than the Wichita, Crossings Mall. And I just think that obviously safety is an issue. I kind of like Mexico City. People would have an issue with that one. But I think, low tax, friendly people, easy to do business, easy to get in and out. Those are the things I'm looking for. And to say that we should go to some, kind of esteemed London or something, there's no value there. The point here is, don't spend $2 million in a house in London and get a basement. Spend $2 million and get a mansion.
Yeah. Very well said. And we're running out of time, but if the viewers are looking to learn more about being a nomad or nomad capitalist, what's the best way for them to learn more and to reach out?
Well, so I wrote this book, which is on Amazon. It's called Nomad Capitalist. You can find it in the Amazon store. And that's a good introduction if you want to distill the 1,000 videos I've made and 2,000 blog posts we've written. You can also go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn more. We're working on a live event right now with Robert Kiyosaki and President Mikhail Saakashvili of Georgia and others. But I would say really the first thing to do if you're just new to this idea of have a bank account somewhere else is get the book.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Andrew. I will leave the links to those in the description box below for the viewers as well. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. All the best with Nomad Capitalist, and let's follow up in the near future.
Appreciate it.